Prepare for arrival. Mr. Savage, we're 1 minute out.
We then began a program of remedying those abuses and inequalities.
To sing our great country. Freedom, security, and greater opportunity. I'm not sure we've absorbed the full impact.
Let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic process.
Government is not the solution to our problem. We gather tonight at a dramatic and deeply promising time in our history. The world has known changes of almost biblical proportions.
Must be not only the envy of the world, but the engine of our own. There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right. Today we pledge an end to the era of deadlock and drift, and a new season of American renewal has begun.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Ladies and gentlemen, truth seekers, patriots, and people that click this by accident, welcome to episode 0 of the Social Hand Grenade, the calm before the storm. I'm Tony Savage, your host, and your guest, Tony Savage. That's right, folks. A show so explosive, it requires 2 of us to contain it. Now, some of you might be thinking, Tony, why are you interviewing yourself? The answer's simple. I wanted one guest that wasn't going to cancel last minute, ask for oat milk before the show starts, or cry on air. Plus, the left gets to identify as 72 different things I could identify as my own guest for one episode. Seems fair. This is episode 0, the calm before the storm. So before we start dropping verbal grenades on the insanity of modern America, I figured I'd introduce myself. To myself. Think of it like therapy, except for one won't pay the copay and the other one doesn't take insurance. And honestly, who better to ask the tough questions other than a guy who already knows all his flaws? It's hard hiding the truth from the guy who has the same haircut, same attitude, and the same inability to whisper. So buckle up, folks, because today you're getting a double dose of Savage. Twice the sarcasm, twice the truth, and 0 filter. If you came here for a safe space and soft feelings, you wandered into the wrong zip code. So be brutally honest with yourself. Have you always been this outspoken? Or did you just snap one day after one too many HR meetings? Yeah, HR didn't break me. I knew after the 7th meeting on my tone, I could either shut up or I could start my own show where I'd never have to apologize again. In true Savage fashion, outstanding. I love it. So, you're retired. You could have continued fishing. You could have picked up knitting. But instead, you chose to do a podcast that gives liberal migraines. So, why is that? Well, fishing wasn't allowing me to expose the hypocrisy like I wanted to. And travel vlogs doesn't get you to point out the insanity on the left. Plus, this show requires a lot less sunscreen. Got it. I don't like sunscreen either. So tell me, when did you realize that roasting the left was your superpower? I think it was when somebody told me for the first time that socialism just hadn't been tried correctly yet. I laughed so hard I developed abs. It was my villain origin story. That's awesome. I can't wait till the comic comes out. So what was your first people really believe this moment? Yeah, I think it was probably when somebody told me that men can get pregnant, and I didn't know whether to sit there and debate them or ask them what trimester they're in. Yeah, that would do it for me too. Absolutely. So what do you say to the people that hate you, but they still watch? Yeah, I would say keep watching. I know you pretend to be offended, but deep down you're addicted, and I'm your political nicotine patch. Absolutely. I'm definitely developing addiction already. I love it. So tell me, with this level of narcissism oozing out of you, I mean, you're literally having a podcast with yourself. So you had to have been an only child, silver spoon fed. Tell me about your cushy life. My cushy life. Where do I begin? I was, raised mostly by a single mother. I had two stepfathers that were in and out of prison when they were around. There was 8 of us, so I have one brother. I have 6 sisters, and it was pretty chaotic growing up. And we were poor, extremely poor. We were poor white trash, so that's white without the privilege. So we didn't have much. But, my mom did a good job of hiding the fact that we were poor. A lot of hand-me-downs. And, we were so poor at one point, we even lived under a bridge. But, my mom, like I said, was really good at hiding the fact that we were poor. So she told us we were camping. We just camped for 2.5 months under a bridge. So, the one time that I actually discovered how poor we were, because I knew we didn't have a lot, but I didn't realize that we were, in the poor category. But in 5th grade, we were at school, and we were all told to bring stuff in to make Christmas baskets, for the poor kids. And in my mind, I envisioned Oliver Twist. I was, picturing, the orphan kids, that they were going to get these baskets, for Christmas. And that was what poor was. And so anyways, we spent a week putting together these baskets, bringing in canned foods and stockings and candy canes and different things to put in the baskets. And about a week after doing that, because the baskets got handed over to the local Catholic church, that's who was running the whole deal. And about a week later, I had a priest show up at my door holding one of the baskets we had made in class. And, I was shocked and went to my mom and was like, "Mom, you didn't disclose the fact that we're poor." So basically from that point forward, I realized that I was poor and I was going to have to work diligently to prevent that from being my future. So that basically sums up my silver spoon existence as a child. It was far from what most people imagine, I assume. One of my first memories, in fact, I was waiting for my uncle, and directly across from our house was a convenience store, because that's usually what happens when you live in a crappy neighborhood. You have a convenience store right across, convenience / liquor store right across from you. And so my house, it was chaotic. It was violent. There was drugs in and out of the house. It was a terrible place, and I loved the opportunity to get out of there. Primarily go, visit my cousins is the number one way as a 10-year-old would try and get out of the house. So, anywho, I remember sitting out in my front yard waiting for my uncle to show up, and while I was sitting there, there's a guy on the payphone at the convenience store, and somebody walks up and shoots the guy. Of course, my mom runs out, hysterical, yelling at me to get inside, and the cops show up, lights and sirens and whatnot, because there was just a shooting. And because my family is, poor white trash, my uncle had warrants, so as he pulls by, he sees the cops and he speeds right past, and I knew that was the end of my going to visit with my cousin. So I ran outside hysterical myself, not because of what happened, but because I knew that my chances of going to my cousin's house was driving away. And I remember getting yelled and screamed at because I went outside again after I was told to, go inside. But yeah, that's the community I grew up in, and the silver spoon I had. It was pretty bleak in the beginning. Well, I mean, it sounds chaotic. I almost want to bring in the violinist to play for you. It's kind of sad. Maybe you could help us with a little bit more upbeat tone. Where did the legend of Tony Savage begin? I hear how terrible it is. Where's the location where this terrible story begins? Well, I was born and raised in California, Central Valley, California. It's a terrible place. Ran by Democrats, so you could imagine how terrible it was. The economy was terrible after Clinton shut all the West Coast bases. That was a majority of the economy where I lived. So that was pretty terrible. And we grew up on welfare most of our lives. That's why you hear people talk about, SNAP and all these other things, and you hear just ridiculous things said by people that have no idea because they actually were raised silver spoon fed with all kinds of privilege, and folks that actually grew up, poor, they know better. So, I knew the house on the block that you can go buy candies, and it's because that person went out and spent their entire food stamps on candies and sodas because essentially it costs them nothing. And then they turn around and resell it for half the price that the store would sell it for. So we wouldn't go to the store. We would go to that apartment that had all the candies and sodas, and we would buy our stuff there. And it's because, those people had drug habits they were supporting. And so, the food stamps didn't do anything for them. They just wanted to liquidate those food stamps into drug money, which happened all the time. I mean, my mom in a pinch would buy other people's food stamps, typically on the, on the black market, if you will. It's 50 cents on the dollar. So, if you had cash, you could make $100 into $200 real easy just by going to somebody who's willing to sell their food stamps because the going rate was 50 cents on the dollar. And this happened all the time. I mean, people would brag about it because it was a side hustle to them, which was basically welfare fraud and manipulating the system. I even knew people personally that were boyfriend, girlfriend. They weren't married, of course, because getting married, they would have lost their Section 8. But they both had Section 8 benefits, so they were both getting houses paid for by the government in California. And they were boyfriend and girlfriend, so they moved into one house, and the other house they actually sub-rented for cash. Of course, that's illegal. That's welfare fraud. But that stuff happens all the time on a regular basis. I knew so many people, majority of the people that were in my neighborhood and were friends with my family were on welfare. None of them had jobs, but you'll hear that, that tripe all the time, like, most people on SNAP benefits have jobs. No. When you lived like that, you know better, and that's not true. And the idea that there's not abuse of the system is also laughable. Like, I know for a fact there is. I've seen it with my own eyes. And most people are not, just on welfare because, they hit a bad spot and it's just a temporary thing. Most people that I knew on welfare, it was generational. They were on welfare. Their kids are now on welfare, and they're taught to actually work the system to where they don't ever have to get a job. And in many ways, because of the way it's set up, it's worse. To go out and get a job. If I was in the household, and I know I experienced this myself when I was a kid, and I went out and got a job for the first time, is it actually decreased the amount of welfare benefits that we received because now our household income was higher. So I actually got scolded and was discouraged to have a job. So it's crazy that when you live like that, you get that experience and you understand how it actually works. And there's so many people out there that just simply have no clue, but they'll talk about it like as if they know, And that's basically the essence of a liberal is they're talking about stuff they have no idea about. Well, I can't say that I'm surprised. Well, because I'm you. So I already knew that. But let me ask you this. What was your escape plan? I mean, it sounds pretty wild. And like you said, you like to get out of the house. How did you make that happen? Well, mostly, I was couch surfing by the time I was 13 years old, going from friend's house to aunt's house from aunt's house to my dad's house to my mom's house, mom's to friends. And so I didn't spend much time in any one spot, because as soon as I was basically told what to do, I went somewhere else. And majority of my junior high and even part of my high school was more or less lived just like that. And majority of my time, if I wasn't working, because I actually started my first business, believe it or not, when I was 13 years old. I went over to my neighbors who had tall grass, and I told him if he would let me mow the lawn, and give me $10. I'll keep coming back and do it each and every week. And he told me the reason why his grass was long is that his lawnmower had died and he couldn't get it working. Well, one of the few things my stepdad did before he had went off to prison was he taught me how to use or work on small motors, because I had a little go-kart before he sold it for drugs, and it didn't work, so he taught me how to get it running. And so I knew how to work on small motors even at 13 years old. So when he told me this, I told him, well, forget about the $10. You let me have the lawnmower, because it's broke. You don't have any use for it. You let me have the lawnmower. I'll mow your lawn every week for free. And he said, well, if you can get it running, it's yours. And all I did was I went over there and took the spark plug out, sanded it down, respaced it, and took the filter out of the lawnmower because it was clogged up and nasty, soaked it in gasoline and wrung it out until it was clear again. And once that was done, put the filter back in, put the spark plug back in, and started on its first pull. And I mean, you could see the neighbor's eyes get huge. He was shocked that I was able to get the lawnmower working. And within 20 minutes, I had his front and backyard mowed, and took my bike and strapped this mower to the back of my bike, and I pedaled it all through the neighborhood and stopped at every house that had tall grass. So I earned, just in one summer, I earned about $350, and that was with me spending money going to the movies and different things like that. And I earned $350 and had it saved away in my drawer. I came home one day, and of course my parents had ghosted my little savings, and learned the hard way you don't leave money around drug addicts. But that was more or less my escape, was work. And then I lived at the skate park. I was raised in California, and that was the cool thing to do, was skateboard around everywhere you're not supposed to, and then if you're when you're not doing that, be at the skate park. So I pretty much lived at the skate park. I remember skating there until midnight some nights, and the cops would show up and shine their lights at us, and we'd run away and skate down the path to get away. And pretty crazy when you think about it now, but that was my junior high years, and it kept me out of the house for the most part. When I wasn't doing that, I was working a job of some kind. Oh yeah, I do remember when they jacked our cash. People suck. Mostly your mom. But let me ask you this. How did you even make it through high school? I mean, all this crazy nonsense going on, and you managed to get a diploma? I mean, that's impressive. How did that work out? Well, believe it or not, I do not have a high school diploma, but I have a college degree. I know that's hard to believe, but like I said, I was working, and I was couch surfing So I didn't really have a, stringent school schedule. I would ditch school more often than I would show up. I was just really good at intercepting the messages and the letters home. Because back then, I mean, we had an answering machine, so if I'd get home and delete the message, no one knew that I didn't show up to school that day, and then they'd send a letter in the mail, and of course I'd intercept that as well. So I was pretty good at being a sneaky teenager. So I'd ditch school sometimes weeks at a time, and no one knew about it. So I got busted, and one of the ways that I got busted for the first time, because I got busted numerous times, but one of the first times I got busted was actually my science teacher called my mom. And it's because I had ditched his class for 2 weeks, and I showed up on a Friday because that was a game day, and I was in football, and even though I didn't have the grades to actually play, I wanted to be there and practice, and sometimes I'd show up, at the end of school just to go to football practice. And then, of course, I'd want to be there during the game. So I showed up on a Friday, and it just so happened that Friday that the science teacher was giving a test. And it was for the last 2 weeks of, classroom work that everyone had done, and I wasn't there for because I had ditched his class. But he was super angry at the fact that I tested highest in the class, even though I hadn't been there for 2 weeks. So he called my mom about it. And that's when my mom discovered that I wasn't there for 2 weeks. Not that she cared very much because, she was busy doing her own thing. But that progressed, and eventually I got called in to truancy court, and my mom had to go. And of course, they threatened my mom, saying, "We're gonna arrest you if you don't make this kid go to school." And so now she all of a sudden became interested in me going to school, which was a real pain for me because I had 2 jobs at the time. I was working at an auto body shop, and I was also working at a restaurant as a busboy, cleaning tables. So, anywho, I didn't want to quit my jobs, and I definitely didn't want to go to school because, believe it or not, in most cases I knew more than most of the kids going there diligently. Just because I like to read, and I was very interested in history. So I was self-taught a lot of this. When I sit down, like I said, I could test higher than most kids just because I was interested in that stuff. So I wasn't interested in sitting there for 8 hours a day learning stuff that I had already learned 2-3 years ago. So, anywho, I worked for an auto body shop, and I just happened to have a kid there that was my same age, and he was a Mennonite. So he never went to school. He always was homeschooled. And, of course, truancy officer wasn't harassing him, so I was like, what gives? How do you just, get to work full time and not have to worry about the man, And so he told me about a test. It was called the California Proficiency Exam. So it was basically a CLEP test for high school. You can go in there and test out of high school. And it was only $50. So I used some of my, my money that I had earned from my 2 jobs, paid for my test, sat there and tested out of high school in sophomore year. After I tested out of high school, I continued to work the 2 jobs that I had, but I also enrolled in college. And enrolled in the community college there. My sister, my older sister, she had already been to college. She had gotten financial aid to pay for tuition and pay for books. So I figured, well, I could do the same thing. I could work my 2 jobs. I could continue to go to college and eventually get better job. And the government would help, pay for my books and tuition because I was poor. So I went in there and filled out all the paperwork just like my sister had done. And I was sitting there 2 weeks into my class. I still don't have my books because, my money hadn't came for financial aid. And somebody came into my early morning class. This was my my earliest class. And they tapped me on my shoulder and they said, "Hey, we need you to step outside. We got to talk to you." And I said, okay. Stepped outside with them. And they proceeded to inform me that you're not 18 years old yet. So you cannot sign up for financial aid. It's not allowed. You have to be 18 to apply. So because at that time, I believe I was 16 and a half or something like that, or just about to be 17 is what I think it was. But I basically I didn't qualify. So I went into the cafeteria trying to figure out what my next move was, because obviously college wasn't in the plan, at least not at that time. And that day just so happened to be September 11th. So while I was sitting in that cafeteria trying to figure out what my next move was, it was almost like God came and tapped me on the shoulder and pointed, this is where we're going next. Because, everyone started crowding around the TV. It just so happened the first plane hit, and everyone was, pretty convinced it was an accident, a terrible accident. And, shortly after that, the second plane hit, and you realize this wasn't an accident. So, I sat there for probably an hour watching with the rest of the kids, the Pentagon attack, and then the plane going down in Pennsylvania. And I grabbed my skateboard and my backpack, and I skated down to the recruiter's office. So I actually joined the Army at 17 years old. And I joined the Army October 7th, 2001, so less than a month after September 11th. And I had to have my dad sign the paperwork for me because I wasn't old enough. I wasn't old enough to even get financial aid. But, I was old enough to go kill for college money, apparently. Wow, that sounds pretty incredible. So we're in the Army now. Everything's great now, right? I mean, it's all smooth sailing from here. I mean, right? I can't take any more. It's got to be good now. Well, you know as well as I do how the Army went. But, we joined at 17. What do you expect? My dad signed the paperwork. I swore in October 7th, so, I was at the recruiter's office way before that. To sign in and swear in by October 7th, 2001, it was because I went there the day September 11th happened. So, I get stationed at my first duty station, went to basic training in the Carolinas, went to my AIT at Fort Gordon because my first job was a radio operator. So, I was sold by my recruiter that was a job that I was still going to get into the action, but I would have a job, lined up for me, smooth sailing after I got out because, he sold me on the idea that radio communications was like computers, that there was a large, civilian jobs out there for that. And, of course, there wasn't, not the type of MOS I had. But I didn't learn that until later on. So once I got done with my AIT, I got stationed, believe it or not, with a medical brigade. So I got deployed to Iraq for the first time with a hospital, and I ran the radios. And as you can expect, most people don't call into a hospital when things are going well. You learn a lot. There was we had ground ambulance, believe it or not. We also had air medevac, and we kept the communication lines open, and kept the ambulances moving, whether that was air ambulance or ground ambulance. And it's horrific scenes when all of a sudden hospital becomes action packed. You see a lot of trauma patients, obviously, that you could expect. It's war. And it was torment listening to that over the radio, and you really couldn't do anything about it. So the second my enlistment came up, I re-enlisted as a 19 Delta Cav Scout because I wanted to get into it, not just sit there and listen to it on the radio. By the time it was, my military career ended, I had done 2 tours in Iraq, and I had served in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. And I mean, a lot of things that you go through in combat will stick with you. But there were things in New Orleans that, still stick with me today. And it's really devastating to your understanding of America itself when you realize that a hurricane could literally wash away civility. And you could have third world conditions overnight. And people will behave in the same manner that you've seen in Iraq or any other part of the world where third world conditions exist, that those people aren't that much different. It's just the situations they're living in, that they are constantly in survival mode, and they'll do heinous things to other people to survive. And you seeing that firsthand, it develops a few things that doesn't leave you. Many veterans will tell you about that. Hyper awareness is one of those things. But the worst of it, I think, in my opinion, was watching New Orleans. Just because you think that can't happen in America, and it can. It's just one event away from you having no power, no running water. The smells in Katrina, or in New Orleans rather, were horrific, because it's not just the bodies, because there was that, but I mean every single grocery store, every single convenience store had lost power and basically been abandoned. So everything's rotting. I mean, there's rotting meat, there's rotting milk, there's everything you could imagine that gets refrigerated has gone weeks without refrigeration now. And so there's just that stench in the air everywhere you go is pretty horrific. One of the things that I recall that stuck with me in New Orleans is we were out, distributing water, MREs, and believe it was insulin and blood pressure medication, because those were the two medications that they gave us, saying that these are life-threatening. If people don't get these things, they're going to die. So they gave them to us, and basically we were looking for people that needed those medications, and also giving them water and food. So all the guys carried that stuff on them, and we essentially went door to door, trying to find people to help. And it was the street. It's Newton Street. Right across from this street, there's a multi-services center, is what they call it. It has a little swing set and a merry-go-round. And we came upon a station wagon that's parked there. It was running, which was kind of odd. Not a lot of people had fuel, so it was weird to see the car running. So I approached the car, realized it's a guy in there with about 6 different kids. So I knocked on the window, showed him we had water and food, and he got out of the car, and he was a very, very big guy. I mean, this guy was probably 7 feet tall, and he was talking real animated, and he was upset. And so I was trying to calm him down, because I was like, man, if this guy decided to go hands, he's going to be a problem for all 6 of us, So I was trying to calm him down, handing him water and giving the kids MREs and whatnot. And this guy says, hey, when are they going to come? When are they going to clean this guy up? Because my kids want to go play on the swing. And I said, what guy? I had patrolled up and down the street for almost a week, knocking door to door. It's a densely populated area. There's houses all over the place. So, we had just barely gotten to his block. But I had passed by the multi-services center a dozen times. And like I said, the stench in the air, it's like you could not tell. And he said, there's a guy behind the dumpster. And I was like, okay, well, let me go check it out. We go and, go behind the dumpster, and there's a guy there, and he didn't die from the hurricane. This is a bad neighborhood. He had 6 bullet holes in his back. At this time, I had already done 2 tours in Iraq. I'm very aware of what bullet wounds look like. And this guy had been there for quite some time, probably even before the hurricane, because he was starting to liquefy into the concrete. and it was pretty overwhelming that they, this guy was pretty cavalier about it and just wanted him cleaned up so his kids can play on the swing sets. So our handlers, because military can't operate within the United States, so you have to have a handler. You have to have somebody in charge of you, and that was ATF. So ATF comes out, and they look over the guy, and you think in your mind, so I'm not a cop, never was, but you have these ideas in your head because I've watched CSI, and I thought they're gonna cordon this place off with yellow tape and chalk outline, and this is a murder scene, and not the case. The ATF officer, who's dressed in plain clothes, did not look like a cop at all, other than a vest and a badge. Walks about 2 paces away from the dead guy and starts pissing in the bushes. And it's like, you really get disappointed in the way New Orleans was handled. It was shocking that this is the way the Fed was dealing with it. Pretty disappointing. And like I said, there's many things in New Orleans that stuck with me just as much as Iraq did. And I think more than anything, it was like these are my people. These are Americans, and this is the way we're handling business. It was disappointing. Good night, bro. Please tell me it gets better. It's got to get better from there. Ticker tape parade, something. How was your exit out of the Army, right? You got awards, you got something. Tell me something good. Well, you know as well as I do, you're going to be disappointed. Because after 2 tours in Iraq and serving in the aftermath of Katrina in New Orleans, the Army put us in jail. So, yeah, you heard that correctly. Basically, I told my job that I was going home and they can go to hell. And they put you in jail in the Army if you do that. They call that patterns of misconduct. So it took almost 10 years to going through the Army Review Board to get my discharge changed and get them to understand and realize and accept the fact that basically my behavior, which was not maintaining my military bearing, of course, but my behavior was from 2 back-to-back deployments and then, of course, New Orleans right after that. And essentially I should have been treated, but they kicked me out for patterns of misconduct. Now, eventually, like I said, the Army did the right thing, and they changed my discharge, and I was actually recognized as a veteran because prior to that, it's like serving 6 years in the military and 2 deployments and 1 local deployment here in the United States. It was almost worse than people that had never joined the service at all, because it was a blemish. It wasn't honorable. It's basically an OTH, which is not a dishonorable discharge, but it's what they call other than honorable discharge. And it's because they classified what my behavior was patterns of misconduct, which, arguably it is patterns of misconduct. It was just I told them I was done. I'm finished. I'm not prepared to listen any further. And you can't do that in the military. And I understand why you can't do that, obviously. But in that particular moment, it was a breaking point for me. And so that's the way I behaved. And the Army's solution for that type of behavior is they'll throw you in jail. And they don't have a problem with that. And that's exactly what they did to me. So that's how my exit was. It was no ticker tape parade and no awards. It was a jail cell. So there's a lot of recovery from all that, and it took a while. It took almost 10 years for the Army Review Board to overturn that. But sometimes that's the way things go. Well, jail sucks, right? But at least you learned how to make a good spread and how to survive even when you're indigent, right? So, I mean, it's got to get better from here. So what'd you do since you got out, right? I mean, you look like you're doing great to me. So, yeah, I mean, once I got out, things definitely got better. Primarily because I married well. Number one factor. If you want to do well for yourself, pick a right partner. And also, I stopped being so reliant on the government, for one. And I started, doing entrepreneurial activities, working for myself, primarily because I had a problem with authority, so I couldn't keep a regular job. So I started my own business. I ended up starting several businesses, actually. I started a home inspection company that I built up from scratch and sold it. Started a medical marijuana dispensary with a partner, built up from scratch and sold my half of that company. And then did the same thing with a construction company, built it up from scratch and then sold it and retired. And that's where we ended up with a podcast, because fishing got boring. So, and in between there, I had done all kinds of things. I had put myself through electrical school that was a year long, went through HVAC school that was a year long, went through plumbing school that's a year long, using the GI Bill, going through a bunch of different trade schools, getting my degree, getting my college degree, so writing a book. Been busy in my civilian career, and now this is my new gig. We're going to be doing podcasts, so I'm excited about it, and I look forward to the future. I think it's going to be outstanding, and it's going to be fun. Well, at least we're ending on a positive note, folks. This is episode 0, The Calm Before the Storm, and you just survived a Category 5 preview. If you didn't survive, that's what Rewind is for. You've officially met the man behind the social hand grenade. Author, soldier, and professional thorn in the side of the woke establishment. Like the Swiss Army knife of irritation for the people who get offended easily. Now don't get comfortable. Episode 1 drops on the 21st. I sit down with my first guest, an unapologetically gay conservative, ready to shatter stereotypes like they were made at IKEA. So remember, folks, Social Hand Grenade isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. It's for anyone tired of walking on eggshells and being told what to think. We laugh while we're fighting back. We're the antidote to groupthink. So like, share, and subscribe. And now, a word from our social media director.
If you're not a commie, like and share.